thing.
If you didn't bark at everybody, you could actually go to the fence.
We had the throne set up here in the house from A&S. We come around the corner and there she is laying on the cushions like, yeah, this is my domain.
Now.
And I'm like, no, nice try, but.
That's funny.
So she's been quite the terror.
Not the terror. She's been helpful.
Helpful, yes. We have 2 cats that are helpful, like cats.
Like cats.
Like cats.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a good reason we call her Tiny Satan. All right, guys, I think.
Before we go live.
Mine says live on YouTube now, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're already there.
Oh, you beat me to it.
And now I'm just posting the link out to everybody. That way people can log on through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Good Lord, we have a lot.
All the things.
Good.
So
How come it always like freezes when my eyes are closed? Every minute, every time.
Well, it doesn't want to be creepy with your eyes open.
I'm creepy with my eyes open. That's the thing. I was going to max creepy status.
all right. Yeah, I do not know how to do Instagram on the computer. I can do it on my phone, great. That's all right. We got this. Yeah. We'll figure it all out. One way or another.
Or not. And flail.
So for anybody that's logging in right now, please be patient. We are figuring out all this awesome technology.
On the fly.
On the fly.
Although you got to admit, when you guys were kids growing up, did you ever think you'd have something like this?
Oh,
I mean,
Lord, no.
Okay, I hate to date myself like this, but it's kind of funny because considering Atari was my first video game.
Yep, same.
Oh, you got Atari?
I had Atari.
I got the Sears
Odyssey.
clone. It was the Atari 2600 clone by Sears.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it worked just the same, and I don't remember how many levels of Space Invaders I played, but a lot.
I don't know. I look at all this now, and when I realize I have a computer that is more powerful than any video game system that I played as a kid.
In your hand.
In your
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those weird things that I'm like, wow, this.
Well, my very, very first home computer was a Commodore VIC-20, not a C64, but a VIC-20
Funny. Yep.
with a 19K expansion cartridge.
Oh, you had the expansion cartridge
I
for
got the expansion cartridge and a cassette drive.
Yep.
And a cassette drive.
High tech.
That was the stuff back then. Let's see. My friend had a Commodore PET. Yeah.
We really are sitting here dating ourselves.
I got enough gray hair. I don't mind.
Yep.
All right. So
I am officially a gray beard, so
you're gonna own it.
Just what you are.
Flat up own that.
Why not?
All right, guys, I think I got us. We're live. I have shared it out to as many places in the known world as I can. And
if we're broadcasting anywhere, we'll probably broadcast to the unknown world too.
Touche, I will give you that.
So yeah, there's aliens in the multiverse, wondering what the hell we're up to, why the time slip is happening here.
I wasn't going to go there, but okay.
Oh, you're afraid to go places.
I know.
Don't be afraid.
I am going to open up YouTube on this side so I can, oops, but no, I need to mute it. Mute. Oh, that's funny.
There's a delay.
That's not distracting at all.
So this way I can monitor any chats that come in or questions or comments. Anyone and everyone is welcome to ask His Grace questions. Anything burning knowledge that you are just dying to know. And I will catch it as fast as I can, both here and on Facebook, as I can. There we go. Now I can watch the comments. And we'll open up the comments on this side.
Are we on the...
We are on the Facebook group. Trust me, guys, I'm nowhere near as good at this as Her Grace Helga is. However, I think we got it. I think we got it figured out. So we'll go from there. So we ready?
Let's do this.
Your Grace, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate you willing to jump in here and be our first for our Ysgithr Allthing. This is where we get to know each other. And for those that are tuning in, I am Thera. And
I am Ruin.
And Your Grace, would you
introduce?
It is Ivan.
So,
that's yours.
Your Grace, pronounce your proper SCA name for us.
Ivan Petrovich.
And what is your title?
So the Russian one is really hard to pronounce, and I don't even use it. So okay. I go by Duke or Knight.
So just for my own edification, what is the pronunciation of that? Because I spelled it out, but I know that K has got to be silent.
It's not actually quite silent. It's that hard start, Knaz.
Okay.
So it's not an overly done K, but it is still there.
Fair enough.
It's something that the English language doesn't really do. So.
How long have you been in the SCA?
20. I got to think for a minute. Sorry.
Years if you need to. Yeah.
What would it be? 27 years now. 28 years now. Come September. Sorry.
It's 92.
92. Yep.
Yeah, me too. But I was active duty military back then in Althea, and so I was there for the party for a good 10 years. Not saying
I was there strictly to hit people with sticks and wear armor. I wanted to be a knight in shining armor. I found out that was totally a thing you could do when I was in.
Yep.
That's awesome. So did you start in college?
Yes.
Or before?
Nope. So I went off to college. I spent my whole first year of college not knowing the SCA existed. I went to a South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, which is an engineering and science college in Rapid City, South Dakota. And for those that don't know, South Dakota is a fairly small population state. The whole state's only about 550, 600,000 people. So the Tucson metro area is bigger. Rapid City is the second biggest city, and it's about 65,000 people. So it's like going down to Sierra Vista, only that's the biggest thing around for 5 hours in any direction.
In any direction.
Wow.
Denver's 7 hours away. Minneapolis is, not Minneapolis, Sioux Falls is 5.5. Getting up to North Dakota is a trek just because there's no real roads that go north-south through there. Going down to Nebraska, you're talking another 5 hours to get anywhere or better. So it's kind of isolated. So the SCA there is not huge. And a lot of the people there are either Air Force, active duty, or they're folks who have lived there forever and have been a part of that community forever. So it was the end of my freshman year. And I've told this story to a lot of people, but it's literally what got me in. I'm leaving my dorm room. It's finals week, and I watch a guy come out of his room and go around the corner, going out the door, and he's got a big army green duffel bag that clanks. He's got a big wooden stick over his shoulder with a medieval-looking helmet on the end of the stick.
Nice.
And I had to stop him, like, hey, I got to ask, what are you going to go do? He's like, well, I'm going to go put on armor and fight. No, come on, seriously, what are you going to go do? Like, no, seriously, that's what I'm going to go do. How do you get into that? I mean, literally, that was my question to him. I grew up reading fantasy and Tolkien. I played D&D pretty much my entire life. So the fact that I found a guy who said, no, literally, I'm going to go put on armor and fight, I was in, just sold. And after I came back from summer break, knowing that the SCA now existed, I hooked up with the local group and started working with the guy making armor. Got my first really wicked bruises that first day of fighting because nobody at that time played nice. I mean, they were nice people, but it was trial by fire.
Yep.
If you can take the beating, well, great, you'll stick.
Yep. Come on back tomorrow.
We've learned a lot since then. We do
Yeah.
a lot better job, I think, these days.
Yes, I think so.
So I've been told to ask you, how far did you drive to get your AOA?
Who somebody's heard this story before. It was, I'm trying to remember if it was 14 hours or 16 hours to get there. It's been a long time now. It was all the way into Madison, Wisconsin from Rapid City. It was for a one-day tournament of chivalry that was being held there. We had a group of people that were going, and even without my AOA that day, for me, would have been totally worth it because I got to fight with more knights than I had ever seen in any one place. South Dakota's only ever had one knight for about 6 months or a year, and then he moved. They still don't have a knight in the whole state.
Wow. So y'all got a lot of snow up there. What did y'all do about fighter practice in the winter?
Didn't have it.
No
We
indoor?
didn't. Nope, we didn't have an indoor facility. So for about 6 months at a crack, you were out of luck if you wanted to fight. So you worked on armor, you learned to make other things. We still had a couple of small events. We still had a monthly gathering for the Shire, but there wasn't any fighting in the winter. That wasn't a thing that happened. I have fought in the snow, and it stings.
Yes. Yes. I fought that in that cold of, yeah. Ow.
Yeah. Yes. It's fun to do very briefly, but yeah, it smarts when you get hit.
It's fun to do until you get that first shot on the squishy bits.
So somewhere in this, you transitioned down here to the sunny lands of no snow.
Yep.
Less.
No, there's no snow here.
No snow.
Okay.
Yep, this much does not qualify as snow. Enough to scrape up and make a snowman that high is not snow. It's entertaining, but it's not snow.
Does it only count once it hits your hips?
So let's put this in perspective. My freshman year, I wake up one morning. It is, I want to say it's December. I go downstairs and they have the big giant, because the dorm was built in the 60s where I went to school. So they have the big giant 60s window, right? And it is about 5.5 foot tall of snow. Huh. I don't think I'm going to class today because I can't get out the door. Now, mind you, it hadn't actually snowed 5.5 feet, but it had drifted up right into the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
stops by to shovel that snow pretty soon.
Funny joke about northern Texas is there's nothing between Amarillo, Texas, and that north wind except a broken barbed wire fence. Because when it snows there, we don't have pretty little, patches. We have drifts. Now, as most people know, I'm kind of short to begin with. But when you have a drift that's 3 feet taller than you,
yep.
Get it.
Side.
Yeah, forget it. I'm done. So
I transitioned down here because there was a job, because quite honestly, both Yonka and I were pretty tired of the cold. I'd lived in South Dakota at that point for not quite 10 years, 9 and change. And Yeah, both of us were pretty much done with that. It's very nice. I love the people up there. I love the countryside. It's like Flagstaff in the Black Hills. It's gorgeous. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of good jobs though, is the problem. So the cost of living there is fairly high and the jobs are fairly low. So if you have a good degree, you pretty much have to go somewhere else. And down here was offering really good pay for us at the time, and it was warm. I don't regret moving here in the slightest.
Um, sorry, forgive me. I'm
All
monitoring
right.
Facebook at the same time.
I think Blake is a little entitled there. He's 6:03 and he's asking questions. I don't know.
I know. I know.
So,
Uh,
so yeah, I actually moved down here twice, as it were. My wife moved down here first in December, right before Estrella one year, and then I came down that June for a summer internship because I had gone. So I've got 2 degrees. I got a geology degree at the time that the market bottomed out, so there wasn't any work. I spent 2 years working at a Sam's Club with a Bachelor of Science, and then went back and got another bachelor's in engineering because I wanted a job. So while she had finished up and moved down here, I was finishing up my second year and then came down here for the first time. Well, actually, I'd come to Estrella. So I moved down here the first time. I encountered the summer heat for an internship, and everybody here was super awesome. I met a tremendous number of people. Everybody was really nice. Everybody was friendly. I got to do all sorts of fun things. It was just a really welcoming environment when I moved down here. And coming down permanently wasn't any different. It was really nice.
Nice.
I will say the fighting culture, holy cow, that was a different level than I was used to. Well, again, my shire had 4 guys in it at that time.
Yeah.
Ironically, one of them who moved away is now King of North Shield. So some of us turned out okay, it looks like.
Apparently you got a good group. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there were only 4 of us there, and being poor and in college and 5 hours from anywhere, I didn't get a lot of exposure to a lot of people very often.
Yeah.
So coming down here where there's literally Dukes and Knights just on the field every Tuesday, like no big deal, was a whole different ballgame. I've been to events that didn't have as many people as our fighter practices. A lot of events,
Yeah.
much less as many high quality fighters as were available. So it was a really steep learning curve, and it was really amazing at the same time. Loved it. So
Wonderful. So now you are a Laurel.
Yep.
And you
Laurel
made
before knighted.
all the things. Is there anything you don't do?
I don't do calligraphy and illumination. I have done a little bit of illumination, and it would take more practice for me to get decent at it than I care to spend. I probably could manage, but I am not that kind of artistic, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
drawing is never something that's come innately to me. I can now draw if I put a lot of time and effort into it. Like when I'm doing a carving project, I still sketch everything out. And the sketching is okay, but I have no natural gift for that at all. Everything I sketch out is stuff I've really had to work hard to be able to do that. So illumination just is not something that I'm going to jump into anytime soon. Again, I gave it a try. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the people who do it because it's not a skill I have. So I don't sing because I can't carry a tune in a bucket. I don't really enjoy dancing, so I don't dance. I have on occasion. I don't enjoy it though, so I don't. There are a number of other things. Like at first, talking what skills you like and are into, I really thought I wanted to get into metalwork. I got a casting set up. I got a little blacksmithing deal going on, and I found out I really didn't like it. It just was not really my thing. I loved the actual casting part. I hated that the failure rate on casting was super high, and I really hated all the cleanup. Oh my God, I hated the cleanup.
Yeah.
I know some people really enjoy it. That was not me. And blacksmithing for me was a lot the same. I didn't mind the actual smithing. I liked hammering things out. The cleanup was just so much work, and it was not enjoyable work for me. I know some people really get into that. They really love it. Like Brian Patrick up in Twin Moons. he's really good at the draw filing and everything, and he really enjoys that sort of thing. Yeah, that was not a skill I really stuck with. I can do it. I don't enjoy it. And if I don't enjoy it, I give it a try. If I don't enjoy it, I'm going to move on to other things.
I chase it.
Woodworking was not something I really expected to really enjoy the way I do. And with power tools, I got to admit, I really didn't. They're big, they're scary, they run fast, and I didn't have a good understanding of them. So I never got the results out of them that I've seen other people get. It never really worked the way I wanted it. Once I got into hand tools, I fell totally in love with that. It slowed me down, it gave me time. And carving was another thing. I didn't really know if I was going to like it, so I bought a very limited set of gouges to start with, and then just absolutely fell head over heels in love with it.
Which I find this both hilarious and ironic at the exact same time, because you're the reason that I have the wood shop I do with all the power tools that I have. So for you to be my mentor in that area, only you don't do power tools. You can, you just prefer not to. I just find that hilarious.
The only two power tools that I've had just really nice luck with. I like working on a lathe, because honestly, the only difference between a power lathe and a foot lathe is you don't have to crank your feet. Yeah. All the hand work is all the same. The other one that I've had good luck with is a bandsaw. I actually really enjoy using a bandsaw. Table saws scare the living daylights out of me. Power planers I can use, but they don't give me the results I like. Jointers, I hate using a jointer. Again, I can, it just doesn't do the job that I think it should, or at least I'm not capable of getting it to do that job. It should specify. The tools probably has no fault in this.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tools, I've been in your shop. But how many tools do you actually have?
I have no idea. I have a few less than I used to. I have been trying to go through and get rid of some that I no longer use. And when I say get rid of, I mean give to people who are going to put them to use. Yeah. Clean them up, touch them up, make sure they're good and usable, and then pass them on. I have a lot of tools. I have a fair selection that I actually touch every time I'm using, or every time I'm doing a project. I have a fair number more that probably I don't need. And a few that I would like to still clean up and put to use. I also have a few that are very purpose-built tools. They do one job insanely well, and so they only get used every once in a while, but I have no intention of getting rid of them. They're just far too good at that one thing. Yes, most of them I could work around. You don't have to have those, but having them makes the job easier and more fun, so more enjoyable. And that's really what I look for in tools these days anymore is, do they help me do the job, and do they make the job more enjoyable to do? If they do those two things, great. I'm going to keep the tool. So, but I have a lot. I really do. I have more hand planes than I need. I have more chisels than I need. I don't have quite as many gouges as I need. I have kind of the wrong kind of some gouges. Because again, when I first got into it, I didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of those that I'll probably still pick up, but I'm trying not to go and buy a bunch of tools that I don't need or I'm not going to use. So I have a good worker set that does pretty much most of the stuff I want them to do these days. There's not a lot of things out there that I'm really, really in the market for, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, we can absolutely relate to this, because at this point, so the draw knife you originally gifted me is still the #1 tool in my shop that we all go for one reason or another. It is the one that is treated like it's gold, and if my draw knife comes up missing, I will absolutely lose my mind. I find myself in, I remember a lesson you gave me a long time ago that a power tool is just a faster way to mess it up. So I've learned to blend the two worlds between my power tools and my hand tools. And as the years have gone on, I have purchased tools according to the project I was working on. Well, now I'm finally in that place where I'm like, No more tools. I'm on a moratorium because I actually have everything we need, and I have my go-tos, and my go-tos can do just about everything I need them to do, you know? So, but what got you started with woodworking?
So more necessity than anything else. I needed some things. I needed a box. Yanka wanted another bed that was better. There were just a lot of little things. And at the time, so we had a number of power tools here at the house when I had a shop on the side. We had what do I want to say? We had a bandsaw. I had a table saw. I borrowed Ed's chop saw for a while, and I was using a fair number of power tools at the time. And I was, at the same time, I was in the SCA, and I was starting to look at some of the things that I wanted to make, and I wanted to try making them in more of a period fashion. And so we learned to sharpen a few things, Richard and I. And at that point, that was really the gateway into hand tools from power tools, is learning what a sharp tool could really, really do.
Wow.
It really was, because I bought a hand plane back in South Dakota years and years ago. And it was a new tool out of the box. So I expected it to be sharp and work, and it didn't. And I didn't understand that it was because the tool just wasn't sharp. It wasn't a great plane to start with, but it was dull, factory sharp. And so I thought the problem was hand tools really didn't work. I didn't understand. Once that first plane, it was actually the same plane, in fact, got sharpened up and it worked like a charm, that was that light bulb moment where everything suddenly started to make sense. And where I realized that once things were sharp, you could do amazing things with them quickly. A couple of years into the hand tool phase, where I was still using power tools and hand tools, this would have been like 10 years ago now. My sister was going to have her first kid, and so I wanted to make her a cradle. And so I used the bandsaw. I cut out most of the parts, but I was using a plane to clean them up and make them pretty, spoke shave, and I was using a hand crank egg beater drill to drill holes to wooden peg them together. And at that time, I didn't understand how fast those things were, and I went right through the rail, both sides of it. So the peg went all the way through, which it wasn't quite supposed to do, because it just did the job like that, and I didn't expect it to go that quickly, because I was working in maple, so it wasn't exactly a soft wood. But again, it's all those little things that kind of tuned me into how effective some of those old hand tools could be. And yeah, absolutely, power tools can make some of the grunt work so much easier and so much faster once you get onto things. But at the same time, my finished work, I enjoy doing it by hand. I love the finish that you can get. I love the precision that the hand tools let you get in fitting things up. And in a lot of ways, it meets the aesthetic because you're doing it the way the guys in the past did. And the closer you get to that, the closer the aesthetic tends to get. Because you're not having, I mean, you've experienced this, both of you.
Yes.
You go in with a power tool and you kind of get the look, but you're constrained by what the power tool is capable of doing.
Yeah.
Brian Padrick had the same thing happen to him when he was making a Mastermeyer chest. He was using a router to try and get the hollowed out lid, because it's a rounded lid with a hollow bottom to open space up and lighten it up. And the router was just giving him no end of fit. So he took a big gouge and just gouged it out. He said two things. One, it looked better, and two, it was a lot faster.
Yeah.
So
and there are places for power tools.
Absolutely.
But absolutely places where hand tools work better.
Yes.
Better. And it doesn't hurt that, our hand tools are very, very sharp.
I introduced him into the Scary Sharp, and once that happened, he built a system that instead of spending all day sharpening our planes and our chisels, reset this thing up in a couple of hours and it's all done.
I may have been to the lapidary store and bought diamond laps. May or may not.
No, that's a great way to go. That's a fantastic way to sharpen.
So a couple of questions have come through for you.
I'm going to pull my cornet off because it's hot.
Uh-huh. Mine's sitting on the table up there, and I looked at it, and I keep looking at it like, no.
No. How can you wear that head wrap?
I'm actually, ironically, I'm very comfortable right now. It actually keeps me cooler. I did not think it would, but it does. But what it really is it's got the Kraken trap. That's really what it is. It has the Kraken trap.
Anyway.
So I got a couple of questions for you that have come through. So which wood project are you the most fond of or the most proud of?
Ooh, tough call. Huh. It would either be the box I made for Elizabeth or the baronial thrones and furniture, quite honestly. My skills have come a long way since I built the thrones and some of the other furniture, but I just like how they turned out. I like the way they look. I'd have probably tried to make them fancier today because I have a lot more carving experience, but honestly, I still really enjoy the way they look. So those two things, I'm really fond of how they turned out.
So the other question is, where do you find the inspiration for some of the more unique items that you make?
So strangely, most of my inspiration comes from period sources. Like a lot of the Viking Age carving I'm doing now, that all comes from rune stones and other things. So I'm sitting in a chair. I'm gonna scoot to the side. You probably can't see it too well. That that's my personal chair. That is a Viking grave end from one of the urns graves, the above ground ones, when they were starting to Christianize. So it has two side walls and then it has two kind of tombstone ends on it, and one of them has that on it. I found this in a old archaeological journal from the Swedish Historical Museum, which has all their old stuff online, and it had a picture of it and a beautiful line drawing. And I literally just copied it because it fits the back of a chair and my shoulder blades beautifully. Like that little pointy top fits right up my spine and in between my shoulder blades. It's super nice after a day of fighting.
It sounds comfy.
Yeah.
It really is. Yanka's chair has a pair of raven heads on it. Those are not directly based on any period example, but they are loosely based on the Gogstead ship dragon heads or horse heads, whichever they are. It's the same sort of carving as goes into those. But a lot of the stuff I do, I recently did a box and posted a bunch of it on Instagram. That again, it's all rune stones. That's it. I look at period rune stones. I think, hey, that design looks neat, and I sketch it out on the board that's going to be the chest, and I go to town. That's where a lot of my inspiration comes from. Like the baronial thrones are a much later period. The carving there is all based on or inspired by stuff from the 1600s. From Europe, and honestly, there's a few pieces from the early 1600s from here in the U.S. Because I got into carving from a guy named Peter Follensby, who was the joiner and carver at Plymouth Plantation, where the Mayflower. So a lot of the baronial furniture is based on that aesthetic, 14, 15, 1600s, late 14 all the way through the 15 into the early 16. You see that kind of floral decoration, some of the vine work, and a lot of the pinwheels and stuff.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the ravens, and that immediately made me think about Raffenheim. You guys are phenomenal. I mean, Bram Patrick brings out his forge. You guys have full demonstrations, and it's more you guys just working on projects and stuff, but because all of us get to walk past or stop and see what y'all have going on. Tell us a little bit about Raffenheim.
So there's a little bit of a funny story to go along with this. So you mentioned all the great demonstrations and projects and basically the open demos we do. When Ed and I, because Duke Edward and I got together and decided we wanted to do a house tour. This will be 11 years for us now. Last Southern Crusades, if it had happened, would have been our 10th anniversary officially. So we're 11 years in, another probably 6 or 9 months figuring things out before we really got kicked off. We thought we were going to have a fighting house. Yeah, that look right there. He was already a duke. I was a knight. I'd been baron. Fighting was going great. We totally thought we were going to have a fighting household. That totally did not work out for us at all.
Surprise.
Yeah, best laid plans and all that. So I mean, we have fighters. Don't take that the wrong way, and we've got really good ones. But that's not all the folks we attracted. And honestly, when we got together, we fully expected to have a lot of people who wanted to fight and do melee and all this be the core of our house. And what we got instead was far more artisans who liked the aesthetic that we were shooting for and wanted to participate in that. We have more laurels than we have knights. We have more artisans than we have fighters. The area that we are weakest on, honestly, is our pelicans and our service people. Because we have two.
I was going to say, but you have a Mistress Magdalene.
Yes, we do.
Who is a force of nature in her own right.
Yes, she
You
is.
are not wrong. So a lot of the demos and stuff that we do now are because we have a passion about these things. I like going to events and seeing people working on their craft. One time we went to Penzic, and sadly they don't do this every time, but down the middle of Merchants, they have a big wide walkway. And down the middle of Merchants, I think it was 1 or 2 days they did this, they had little, basically, kiosks of people just doing their crafts. They weren't selling anything. They were just doing what they do. There was a guy literally doing pewter casting with an open fire and a bucket of pewter over it, a ladle, and he was carving molds and casting and cleaning them up. There was a gal who brought out her warp-weighted loom, and it was just all these people doing things in the middle of Merchants so people could see their craft and talk to them and get questions and see what the possibilities were. So that's one of the things that we've really tried to do with Rothenheim, is not hide away everything we're doing, is put things out where people can see them and ask questions and stop by and see what we're doing and hopefully get inspired by it and go home and do their own thing. I know this year I didn't do anywhere near as much woodworking as I planned because Magdalene had the ovens up and going, did an amazing job, and I got to bake bread on site. It was awesome.
Right.
I loved that whole experience. It was amazing.
I was so bummed out when I found out you had made bread on site and I missed it. I told her, I was like, the next time I have to know is Ivan bread.
We are totally doing that again. I'm going to bring a little bit more material. We're going to bake more bread because this one I did from a sourdough starter culture that I've got. I packed a little bit of it along. So literally it was about as traditional bread as you can get without grinding the flour itself. And it does have a different flavor coming out of a wood-fired oven like that. Oh, yeah. It was great. So yeah, we're planning on doing that again, assuming we have Estrella. So whatever happens, but our plan is our next big camping event, we're going to have an oven.
That's awesome. So you were Baron of Ysgithr.
Yep.
How long were you in the barony when?
Let's see, what would that be? 3, 4 years? 3.5, 4 years I'd been in the barony at that point. But again, I technically people knew me from the summer internship, but when I came down, it was the summer of 2002. Yeah, summer of 2002. I moved down here permanently. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I guess it was closer to 4.5 to 5 years. I'm sorry, because it was no, it was almost a full 5 years at that point, because we stepped up in March of 2007, Laurel 2006. Sorry, going back a little while. Gotta make sure my timeline's right. I'd been in the barony 4.5, 5 years at that point. Very active. I'd just been laureled like 6 months before I stepped up. 3 months before the polling. 3 months before the polling. So it's not like we came out of the blue. People had been around us for a little while. They kind of knew what they were getting into. So I don't think I missed a fighter practice during that time.
Did you know what you were getting into?
No. I mean, people told us, don't take that the wrong way, but they can tell you all you want, and you can intellectually have an idea of what you're getting into, but you don't know. You can't know until you're there and doing it. And that's just one of those things. And I don't want to scare anybody who's out there who's thinking about it, because I look back on it and it was a really good time. I really enjoyed it. We had a few struggles, a few problems. I think every baron and baroness does.
Wow.
But the barony didn't. just wait.
Yeah.
You have COVID, so while it's easy for you technically right now,
Yeah, but
It's
not
the
like
plague.
it's not.
It is
I mean,
still the plague.
it's still the plague. Exactly. You
it's
still have to
funny
deal with it.
because
You're doing things like this rather than getting together like you would like. That's enough
Yeah.
of a stress all on its own.
yeah,
But here's how I'm choosing to look at this. If this is the hardest thing that we're going to have to come across,
don't jinx us. Don't
Yeah,
jinx us.
no jinx, no
And-
whammy.
well,
No,
no,
just-
I wasn't going to jinx us. I wasn't going to jinx us. All I'm saying is, when, like you said, intellectually, you know what you're
You
getting
do.
into.
Yeah, you
Yes.
can totally
It isn't
prepare.
until you're here,
No,
but
no,
it's
no.
so easy to be scared away from wanting to do this job, because when all you hear is, oh, it's so hard, oh, it's, condolences. That's the one that I can't tell you the number of people that came up to us and said, oh, let me offer you my condolences. And I'm like, this is difficult. I miss everybody. I miss being out on the field. I miss hugging the
Mhm.
sweaty fighters, or walking up to you and going, hey, Ivan, I did this really, and just motor mouthing all over you because of whatever I jumped into the deep end of the pool on. And so I miss all of that. And I know we're all missing that a lot. And doing everything in this world right now, it's a challenge, because we're like, how do we come together? And this was the best we had, but each Baron comes across different challenges. Now, you were on the path to knighthood, and you were actively working hard
Yep.
for that path at that time as well. So
Yes, I was.
Not something like me.
So for me, the thing with being Baron is, yes, there were challenges. Yes, it was difficult. But at the same time, it had some of the most rewarding moments in my life. There were great things that I got to do and experience because I was Baron.
Yes.
I mean, it's a little cliche, but everybody who sat one of the thrones of any sort says giving out awards is super rewarding. They're not wrong. They say it because it's true. It really is. Seeing that look of joy on people's face and being able to recognize all the work that somebody's put into something is really rewarding.
Yeah.
Having people there that take care of you and you take care of them, that sense of family and community is, again, super rewarding. Being able to being Baron at Estrella and being able to pull everybody together as a unit and go onto the field, again, super rewarding. There are lots of great things that I got to do because of it. And it was a lot of work. And for, I don't know, 10, 15 years afterwards, I wouldn't want to do it again because I know how much work it is.
Yeah.
And it's also good to give the barony a rest and do other things. But now, probably not now because I have a 9-year-old, but at some point in the future, I wouldn't say no to doing it again. I wouldn't go out of my way. If there's plenty of people who want to do the job, great.
Yeah.
But it's not hard enough and it's not scary enough that I wouldn't do it again if the opportunity arose.
So I've heard you called the Gumby Knight.
Yes.
He moves oddly.
I am less flexible than I used to be, but I'm still very bendy. And I have always used that to my advantage.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize how bendy I was until people caught some photos of me, and I literally bent it like 90 degrees to the ground, hitting a guy in the leg.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, so that there's a reason they call me that. Okay, I got it. That makes sense now.
It puts you at an odd angle, and sometimes it's really hard to defend against that really weird angle you're coming in from.
Yes. Yeah. It also takes my head out of the line of fire because I'm tall and it's right there for people.
Yeah.
So if I can move that out of the way, it's harder to hit me in the head. So yeah, Gumby Knight is not all that wrong. I use the flexibility. I use my height. I use my arm lengths. You use the advantages that you are given.
Yes.
If you don't, you're wasting. You don't have to move the way I do to be successful. Please don't take that the wrong way. Just use what you've got to the best of your ability. That's
learn
really
how to use you. Yeah.
You can
learn how to use your body.
Yep. Nobody is going to fight exactly the same way as you. They may move similarly. They may have certain stylistic things that are the same, but they're not going to be identical. Like you look at Craven, for example. I've literally met one other guy in the world, so two of them that essentially move the same. Craven is far better at it. The other guy wasn't bad, but I have Craven, so he didn't do so well. But
well, your tricks.
But Craven's literally the best I've ever seen at what he does. And I've only ever seen, again, that one other guy move like Craven. So you're not going to fight like Craven more often than not. You're not necessarily going to fight like me because you're not everybody's that flexible. Not everybody has super long arms, because that's the other thing a lot of people don't realize. As my wife calls it, I have a positive ape index. I have arms that are longer than they should be, even for my height. Like, so funny one for you. Osric, who is 6'4", 6'5", super tall, right? Hard to deal with, right? My arms are as long as his arms because he does not have particularly long arms for his height.
Okay.
He was confused for years because I could hit him when he could hit me. And that's not the way that's supposed to work for Osric.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I've got my arms are 1 inch longer than they're supposed to be. So I've got a bit of a long arm.
Yep. And use it. That's what it comes down to.
It really sucks trying to find shirts.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
The black shirts are always about this big on me and too wide.
Yeah, yeah.
I said because
or they're about right here.
Or they're up here. Yeah.
I call him monkey arms for this reason, but now I'm thinking that term applies to you too.
It really does. Because again, my arm span is significantly longer than I am tall.
Yeah, yours are too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of questions came through YouTube. Back to your household real quick. Do your students camp with the household?
Yes. That's not a requirement by our household rules or anything, but it is a firm requirement, at least for Ed and I, and a good chunk of the others, because, so here's the logic behind it. It's not to inconvenience the student, but if you're a student of mine, why do I not want to spend time with you? Why do I not want you in my camp? You're my student. I want you to be there with me. I want to be able to work with you all the time. I want you to see what I'm doing. I want to have those moments in camp where we're just sitting around BSing and talking about things so that you understand more what's going on. That uncontrolled learning environment is super important as far as I'm concerned. And again, not everybody has to do it the same way. It's not a one size fits all for everyone. But I personally really like having my students in the house with me, because then they're there and they can see how things are going. They can help out. I can see what they're doing. And we get a lot more of that personal interaction than I would if they were camped somewhere else. It's the whole reason I want a household to start with. I want the people around me who I like being with and who want to do things the same sort of way I want to do. I find it a very comfortable place to be. I like being around people like Brand who want to bring out the forge, or Dalitha who's going to do bronze casting in camp. Or this year we had Dominique cooking up a whole roast in a cooking box on site. I mean, I love all that little experimental stuff that we do. And the people in my house are the people who like doing that sort of thing. That's what I get a kick out of. So yeah, my students are all required to be in the house with me. That being said, it's not like I won't teach you if you're not my student. You can come up to me and ask me pretty much anything you want.
I have.
If you're not careful, I will talk your ear off because it's also something I'm interested in. So
but that's, from my perspective, that's what's always drawn people to you. I know it's what drew me, to you, was for that reason right there, is you didn't just kind of give me a short answer and then send me on my way. Your passion for that subject kind of ignited my own, which made me dive down the rabbit hole myself. And then suddenly I'm coming back to you going, ooh, look,
Look what I did.
Yeah. So
I love getting texts from you, by the way. Look at this. Like, oh, that's actually really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because we have that shared passion. It's you have my wind-up key, hey, Thera, what do you think about doing this, this, and this? Oh, dude, let's do it. I'll be over tomorrow, you know?
That is one of the most rewarding things as a teacher that I think I have, is being able to help somebody find a passion and then just watch them go with it. Even if it's a passion I may not necessarily share to the same degree, watching their love of something get turned on like that and just run is brilliant. I love seeing that. I love seeing the things people produce. Even if they're not something I'm going to go do, like the subtleties. Oh my God, I can't believe I just forgot her name. She was doing all the super good subtleties this last year. Why can I not remember her name? It'll come back to me after this meeting is over. I know it. It's going to drive me insane now. But she texted me a picture of what she was doing because I couldn't make the event. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Am I ever going to do that? No. Do I think it's still fantastic? Absolutely. Because she put all that work into it and it was gorgeous. Clothing. I can make clothing. I don't really enjoy it, but I love seeing the things people do. I love seeing the clothes they make because, wow, some people can produce some amazing things. I like making all the assorted goods to go on the clothing, the trim, totally down with that.
Yeah.
But actually sewing the garment, just not really a passion. Not, again, I can, perfectly adequate at it. Don't really enjoy it. Would rather not.
Oh, it was Imalut.
Thank you. Yes. Because she and I had talked, Malut and I had talked after she had presented subtleties at Kingdom A&S, and I thought she was doing some amazing work there. So when she did a big one for another event, she actually texted me photos of it. And again, I thought, A, it was really cool she thought to text. B, I thought the work she had done was amazing. And C, then it was really sad that I had chosen not to go to that because I didn't get to see it in person. But again, as a teacher, I love seeing the passion people take when they go and they do their art, whatever their art happens to be. I love seeing that and I love talking to them about it. It's, again, that's one of those things that to me is really rewarding. So.
Well, and, on that topic, rewarding, we all do things, for some type of an award of some sort, whether it's emotional, mental, or even, something physical. Do you think it was harder for you to achieve knighthood as your second peerage?
Yes, but not because it was the second peerage. I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this. So when I moved down here and started doing arts and science, I figured out pretty quickly that I was going to be a Laurel. There wasn't any real question about it. It was just a matter of time. Yeah. And part of the reason for that is I was doing a whole host of crafts that people down here really didn't do at that time. They were things that everybody up north was doing. So I had a plethora of really fantastic teachers up north. I mean, I can't count, even when I moved down here, I can't count the number of tablet weavers up in Northshield. There were a lot of them even then, and there are even more today. There were people doing spinning, weaving, natural dyeing, all that stuff that I found fascinating at the beginning. And when I moved down here, there was Ysgithr and one other gal who was doing some tablet weaving who moved away shortly after I moved here. So there were two of us. And I'm a fairly fast learner and was already producing a fair number of bands and went into textiles and other things pretty heavily. I did a little bit of bone carving. I did a little bit of metal work. And again, all this was stuff that I had picked up bits and pieces of from people up in Northshield who were already doing it, but it was sufficiently different from the culture here at the time. And I don't want to make it sound like the people here weren't doing arts, because that is not the case. There was some very high level arts, but most of them were much later period than I was doing. Unlike now, where you have a tremendous amount of Vikings, when I moved here, there were like two. Again, maybe three. All the shields were still strapped to the arm heaters.
Yes.
Even Craven was using a strap to the arm heater. Yep. He wasn't using a center grip round. It was a totally different cultural landscape. And so when I moved in, I was doing things from a totally different cultural perspective, even SCA culture. I was doing much earlier period than was average. I was doing much different techniques than they were doing. And so it really stood out. So again, as long as I kept at it and didn't, make a whole bunch of enemies across the board, I was pretty confident I was going to be laureled at some time. So that to me was never really in question. It was just a matter of when. It happened a little earlier than I expected. I was expecting another couple of years, but again, I knew that was going to be one of the things. I did not know if I was ever going to be knighted. I did not know if I was ever going to be good enough. I was fighting all the time. I was still in my 20s, but I don't come from a sports background. I didn't play sports as a kid. I didn't really do anything physically, I don't want to say demanding, because I played hard. I did a lot of things. I was always in relatively good shape, but I didn't have that athletic background that you see some guys come in with and do super well. I mean, right now, our young almost knight, Gregor, he comes from a wrestling background, and it makes his life fighting a lot easier. And that's not to say it's easy or he's at an easy path, but he already had a background in a martial activity. And so the mindset was something he was already accustomed to, whereas I had to build up to that. I had to understand what I was doing. I had to learn how to move. And I made all sorts of mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And I came again from a small shire where I spent almost 8 years, 7.5, 8 years, with no real tutelage, with nobody who was really very good. That first summer when I moved down here, I was fighting every week, every Tuesday, and oftentimes every Sunday at the Sunday practice we had at the time. And I'd go out to the college practice when there were people there. And I was learning from really high caliber fighters. And when I went home, they had been practicing all summer amongst themselves. They'd gone to Lily's. And we came out that first night, and it was super educational because I wrecked them.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it. They didn't expect it. But the caliber of people I was training with was so much higher than anything they had access to that it changed everything we were doing. So talking about getting knighted, back to that subject, I didn't know that I would ever be good enough to get knighted. It really is the case because I'd come out of a very small area. I was at a training deficit, as it were. The thing that made it work for me is I worked my butt off. I was at every practice. I went out to every event I could get my hands on. I was fighting at every war. I was doing pickups every chance I got, and I was fighting with guys consistently above my level as often as I could. Because that is an incredibly hard but valuable way to train. It lets you see where the bar is at. And as long as they're not so far above you that you can't learn from them, then you see where you need to go and what you can do next. But even when I was knighted, I was still Baron when I was knighted, literally almost 2 years after I was laureled. I didn't expect to be knighted at that point. I didn't know that it was coming. I didn't expect that it was coming. And I thought it was going to be longer. I did not know that I was going to be good enough ever up until it happened.
Yeah,
and
I understand that.
That's kind of the way it works. And obviously it's carried me a long way. That willingness to go and keep going and keep practicing and keep doing. That's really what it is. You have to figure out how to make it to practice, and you have to get out and actually practice.
Yes.
So, at the risk of being cliche, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Still fighting. I'll be in my early 50s. I don't plan on stopping until either I break myself badly or until that it just gets to be too painful to be worth it to do regularly.
Yeah.
And that does come for everybody. There's no good way around it. And I've had to start trying to internalize that now. For anybody who doesn't know, I hurt my knee pretty badly at war practice in January. And it's still probably only 80-85% of healed or full mobility. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to be. Unless I elect to have surgery at this point, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to go out, I'm going to maybe get to 90%, and I'm going to have to be careful with it because it's going to be easy to hurt again. Yep. Injuries are a part of the sport we play, and the older you get, the more likely you are to get injured. I was talking to my doctor, and she said, so it's torn, not badly. You don't need surgery because it's healing, but if you tear it again, you'll need surgery. And I looked her in the eye and said, it's not if it gets torn again, it's when I tear it again. Because I'm not going to stop doing the things I love doing. I have to accept that as a risk that I'm going to take and assume that it is going to happen.
Yes.
and there's no way around it. And as I age, it's going to get worse. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop anytime. So in 5 years, I fully expect to be on the melee field. I fully expect to be going to practice. I probably will not go to as many practices as I was, because again, even now I'm 47, just turned. Even now, the bruises take longer to heal than they did when I was 35.
Oh yeah.
That's just a fact. But if you're young, you should be doing this every chance you get. You still heal fast. That's when you have the best chance to learn and do well. If you're older and still want to get knighted, it's hard.
It's hard.
There's no lie about that. You have to be dedicated, but you have to be careful. And the best thing I can say is you need to find a way to train that does not impart impact. You need to find, and it's super hard now because we're all distance, you need to find a way to train where you can train but not do it and take damage. You need to go out to practice, but you also need to be training a day or 2 days a week outside of practice to get good at it, so that your footwork is good, so that your technique is on, so that you're used to moving and you're used to the weight and you're used to the motions and mechanics you're going to have to use. And then fighter practice will be all about trying to employ those at full speed, because you still need that helmet time. So for anybody out there who doesn't know, I also have a 5th degree black belt. I practice Mantis boxing kung fu. It is not wushu. It is not fancy. It is incredibly practical. And it is all about taking advantage in a fight and not giving it back, pretty much like the SCA. My footwork is identical when I do both. Nothing is different about it. But that training gives me the opportunity to test a lot of things out before I go out and get beat on for failure. If you're testing it, well, I'm serious, because the old school way was test everything at full speed, and if it doesn't work, you'll figure it out quick.
Yeah.
Problem is
That's actually why I'm laughing, is because I remember that.
That's literally the way it used to be, and I'm sure there are still groups that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But so my household has a dojo practice where I rent out the space at my martial arts dojo, and before COVID, we would get together once or twice a month and we would go over slow work and footwork and all the basic mechanics. And that's something I'm starting to think I may expand out and open up to the rest of the barony, or anybody who wants to drive in for it. Because the more I look at the way we do things, the more we, especially as we age, we need to train differently and more effectively, so that when we go out and put it to practice at full speed, we get more out of it. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. We're not getting beat up and stopping to try new things because it hurts too much to try new things. That's a slow way to learn. It's a hard way to learn. You want to try new things in a comfortable learning environment where you're not getting beat up, and play with them enough until you start to figure out whether they will or won't work. And then you want to export them to full speed, full contact, where you stand a chance of getting them to work more often, so that you don't just give up on something because you can't get it to work the first couple of times and you get hit hard. So for years, I never threw a back blade. I didn't have the mechanic for it. I didn't understand the way it works. And it can be a really great shot. Morgan's proved that. Other people have done it. Now that I understand the mechanics and I've worked through it over and over again, I can throw one. But I've gone so long without doing it that it is not a instant thought to do it. I have to think about it because I've practiced so long without it. It's little things like that that are easy to miss. You miss opportunities when all you do is get beat up for failure. There's got to be some sort of middle ground in there. There's got to be training. Well, let me rephrase. It doesn't have to be training, obviously. We've done it this way for years, but it sure helps if there is. You get a lot more out of it when you go to practice. And fighting, I say this for arts and I say it for fighting as well. They're hand skills. They take repetition to be effective.
Yes.
You have to practice them over and over and over again until they become that internalized memory, that what people call muscle memory. I mean, in real life, muscles don't have memories. It's just your brain going on autopilot. You just do it because you know that's what you have to do. You watch somebody who's really good at a hand skill. It doesn't matter which hand skill it is, sewing, spinning, woodworking, forging, whatever it is, calligraphy and illumination. You watch the way they work and there is an economy to their motion. They do things unconsciously that make their lives easier because they work without thinking about it. when I have to stop and break down exactly what I'm doing, it takes a moment generally for me to think about what I just did. Some teachers have an amazing gift for breaking down what they just did or watching other people's and breaking it down. I still have to think a lot about it. There are some people who never manage to make that transition. That's kind of the difference between an intuitive teacher, a decent teacher, and somebody who's not really supposed to be teaching.
Yeah.
So that leads me to a question, because you come from two completely different cultures, from North Shield to here. Yep. One of the questions that was asked on the YouTube chat is, as Baron or the Crown, coming from another kingdom and its culture, did you find it hard to try not to make the barony and Eatonvelt that culture while you were sitting the thrones?
So there's a complicated answer to this. The two parts. So one, I never expected Eatonvelt to be like North Shield. I came in knowing that it was going to be different. I came down for an Estrella, which for me, that was an amazing eye-opening event. It was bigger than anything I had ever been to by like quadruple. There were so many people, so much going on. But one of the things I saw down here is, A, the climate is very different. When I left North Shield to come down for that Estrella, it was 10 degrees above zero. I got down here and it was 80 degrees in the day. Okay, in February. That's not a thing I'm used to start with. So I knew things were going to be different off the bat. The culture was different. It was much later period. It was much more Middle Eastern. It was much different. I mean, it was much different then than it is today, which we'll get to. But I knew that it was going to be different when I moved down here. And I did my best to accept that. I didn't want it to necessarily be North Shield. I wanted it to be what it was because I really liked a lot of the people down here. Everybody was really welcoming when we showed up. And I went from, so my persona is based in the 1100s. I went from being sort of a late period persona up there where I was at, because there was a lot of people in the 4 to 6 to 900 range. Not many people, I mean, a few people in the 1400s and not many people after that. That also has changed. To one of the later period, or one of the earlier period people when I moved down here, which was a weird transition for me to make. But again, everybody was super welcoming. I didn't want to change what they were because they were happy being what they were, and they were doing some amazing things. So when I became Baron, we told everybody up front, hey, our persona is, early period Rus. That's what we're doing. You don't have to do the things we're doing. If you want to, we'll totally be on board to help out. But don't feel obligated. But also don't be surprised when we do things that way. Don't be surprised when we don't go by Baron and Baroness. We go by Posadnik and Posadnica. Because, so here's a funny aside real quick for people. So our Baron and Baronesses are done by polling and appointed by the Crown. So the populace comes together and says, hey, here's who we think should be Baron and Baroness. The Crown appoints them. It is not a vote. There's a very subtle difference there. The Crown can appoint whoever they want. Smart ones don't. The Russians had something very similar for Novgorod and for some of their other outlying cities. They had a prince or a posadnik, but he didn't just grow up and get to rule the city. He was literally voted on or polled by the boyars, the upper nobility of the city, and they went to the Grand Prince in Kiev and said, hey, this is the guy we want to rule over us, not that guy. And if the Grand Prince was smart, which he almost always was, because the couple of times he wasn't, it ended very poorly.
Yeah, and permanently.
That's who they had. So Posadnik is more or less an elected official of the city. He's an elected prince or baron, as the case may be. Prince is kind of a generic term in Russia. It doesn't quite mean the same thing as it does in Western Europe, because you had Grand Prince, which was your king. You had the prince under him, which would be the Grand Prince. And then you had the princes of all the other outlying cities, which are essentially barons, the way we do things. So Posadnik was literally about as close a medieval term to what we have as anything out there.
Yeah.
So to get back to subject, we did things differently. And we told people we were going to do them differently off the bat. And also told them that we didn't expect that they would do all the things we do. And that was okay. You are more than happy to go about doing things the way you want to do them. If you want to be 16th century Persian, you rock on. Have a great time with that.
a good time.
And that's the thing. We didn't want to convert everybody. When we were Crown, it was the same thing. We didn't necessarily want to convert everybody. So here's the complicated part of it. I got that anyway. If you look around the kingdom now, we have a ton of Vikings. We have a ton of Rus. We have center grip rounds and teardrops everywhere. Very few people use a heater anymore. There's tablet rove and trim running rampant all over the kingdom. I got all the things that I came with out of it, but I didn't try to get there. I didn't try and change the kingdom. I did, I think, along with some other folks, but it wasn't because I made a conscious decision that I wanted that. I think more or less it was because I was having fun doing a lot of these things, and other people saw that, and it was fun for us. I can't even explain why we all suddenly went to center grips. I can tell you when I went center grip, there were like two of us who went center grip. But as soon as I picked up a center grip, I never went back to a side strap. No desire whatsoever.
I'm with you on that. Absolutely with you on that. I picked up a heater a couple of times since then, and I thought, why?
Why am I doing this to myself?
What? Yeah. Why am I punishing myself? Yeah. Yeah. I'm not getting hit a lot, but boy, I just don't have any shots available.
And it's just not fun for me. That being said, for those who fight out there, don't take that the wrong way. A heater can be a super great shield, and some people absolutely love them. There's nothing wrong from a fighting perspective. I personally don't like them, and this is one of the things that I try and make clear to people. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean that it is bad or that it doesn't work.
Yes.
It just means that I don't personally enjoy it. I don't get much out of it. If there's something that actually doesn't work, I'll tell you it's not because I don't like it. It's because it just doesn't work, and here's why.
Yeah.
Heaters work great. I don't personally like fighting with them. They're not as dynamic. They're not as fun. They are effective.
Yes.
I mean, you watch some guys who still fight with heaters, and they're really good with them. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't like fighting with them.
I don't like fighting because it's hard to get around that thing, and it's very effective shield.
That's what I was about to say. Being somebody that has a very small torso, if I'm fighting with the heater, I can't get out from behind my shield long enough to throw a shot.
And I'm Gumby. I like to reach. I like to do things, and the heater gets in my way. Which honestly, I fought with a heater. I want to say from '92 probably until 2002 or 3. I think it was 2003. And it was Marius from down in Mons who gave me a center grip round blank because I was getting frustrated fighting shield. I just wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't getting better as a consequence. And I strapped it up one day and I went out with it, and it was a ball for me. And so I never went back.
Yeah, and then those center grip rounds, what I found is they hurt a lot if you don't move them around.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like to be active. I like to move.
Yes.
So and for those wondering, the whole reason I switched from a round to a teardrop is in Russian illuminations, you see 3 saints. One has a spear and a sword at his hip, but that's it. One has a big, giant, Byzantine war round, which no interest. And the other guy has a little teardrop shield and a sword.
Yeah.
Teardrop it is, because that's what you see in all their illuminations and carvings. That's why I use it. It's not really better than a round. It does things a little differently. It gives you some things that a round doesn't. It takes a few others away. But again, I didn't go to it because it was a better shield. I went to it because it fit my persona, and it wasn't a worse shield.
Because you wanted to, really.
Yeah, that was literally it. It gave me the dynamic that I was looking for, like the round did, and it fit the persona I was shooting for. So, for anybody thinking that it's a super great shield or something, it's a good shield. It's not better than a lot of others.
Yeah,
I know we see a lot of guys use it today because you see some of our top tier fighters using it. Morgan does it, Ed does it when he comes out. I fight that way, and a number of others fight with teardrops. And like any sport, when you see the guys at the top doing something, you get a lot of people emulate that without understanding that it's not necessarily the shield that makes the difference. It's what the guy does with it. You can do the same with different shaped shields. Just depends on how you fight. I mean, Phelan still fights with the heater and does really well with it.
Does really
he
well.
won 5 crowns with that thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that track record. I mean, that's success.
Yeah, that's some serious success. So again, it's not the shield, it's what you do with it.
So we're coming up on our time, but I'd like to round out the conversation of, so what is your next goal? What's your next accomplishment you're aiming for?
I still have a lot of woodworking projects that I want to do. So I've got 3 big goals. I really, and most of them are, I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm sorry if I take a little bit of time here. So quite honestly, I have been fortunate enough and dedicated enough. I've literally now achieved, I think, all of my major SCA lifetime goals. And it's been amazing. That's not a depressing thing for me at all to have done those things. So I've been Baron, which I never expected to do or even initially wanted to do. I've become a Laurel. I've always wanted to be a good craftsman. I've become a Knight, and quite honestly, especially when I was living in South Dakota, there was no way I was going to get knighted, and I knew it. So that is a huge accomplishment for me. I've gone on, I've won 2 crowns, which again, even after I was knighted, I didn't think I'd ever be good enough to win a crown.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother level of fighting that I didn't know that I was going to be able to get to. And I've gotten to do that twice. I've gone to major events. I mean, Estrella's in my backyard. Pinzik I get to go to, and it was super fun the times I've been. So I've achieved, I built a big house of really cool, like-minded people that, again, is something I never thought I would do. I wasn't really interested in building a big house, but it just kind of happened. Even when Ed and I started putting it together, we were figuring, 15, 20 people, that'd be huge. And now we're pushing 50.
Yeah.
Did not see that coming. So I've achieved a lot of the things I want to do. So now a lot of my goals are far more almost small scale, if you will. Like there's a lot of things I want to do with the house. I still have a lot of projects to make the house look more medieval, to do more medieval things while we're in camp. I really enjoy that aspect of the SCA. I really want to improve my woodworking. I really want to carve more things. I want to do all those super fancy things that you see pictures of because it's fun. And I want to have people pass by the camp and go, dang, that looks amazing. And say, yeah, didn't happen overnight. Looks amazing now. This all takes work. Everybody can do it if they're willing to put the effort into it. I want to inspire, if that makes sense. And I think I want to spend a lot of my fighting time. I mean, I still want to train myself. There's no end to that until you're done. But I think I want to spend a lot more of my fighting time figuring out how to train people easier and better to speed up that hard learning curve that a lot of us experienced in the beginning. As a sport, our fighting is still fairly young. We're 50 years old now.
Yeah.
54, something like that. That's not a lot of time to really develop a mature fighting system. Yeah. And yet we're looking really good. If you look around at our top tier guys, they're good. Our lag is down at the bottom where we still don't have a good program for training people on entry level to get past the beat up, bruised stage in a more timely fashion. They spend too long there, if that makes sense. So I think one of my big goals over the next few years, the next 5 years, as you said, is try and figure out a way to incorporate that into the SCA without making it boring for people. Because, I mean, anybody can go to a dojo and they can learn footwork and all those things, but a lot of our guys really are there to hit people with sticks. And they want to get good at hitting people with sticks fast. So figuring out how to convince them to spend at least some time on the, quote, boring parts of training so that they can get out and hit people more efficiently is hard. It's why we've struggled with it for so long. So I think, honestly, one of my goals is to try and figure at least a piece of that out. I'm not going to say I'll have a whole system worked out because I won't. I don't think anybody will. I think it's going to take us another 30 or 50 years to really get that part down. And I know that sounds like a long time for everybody, but again, 50 years is not a long time for a mature fighting style. Look how long we've been doing boxing, and they still figure things out. MMA is another new fighting style. Look how changed it is just over the 25, almost 30 years it's been going now. It's changed radically, and it's still not stabilized. So it's going to take time, but I want to get involved in that. I want work with some of the newer folks and figure out if we can't figure out how to help them through the bumps a little easier, how to get them advanced a little bit faster and up to speed, at least to the point where they are confident and comfortable enough to do things on their own. So those are kind of my next 5 to 10 year life goals within the SCA. So,
so on that note, here in the kingdom, each group is culturally different. We are all 8 and belt, but culturally every group is different. We all have our own styles in each group.
Yep.
To do that, how do you think you can overcome the different fighting levels and the standards, the culture of those groups?
So
Tracks.
I don't think that one person can actually do that effectively. I think because there are other people who are starting to think like me in other groups as well, trying to figure it all out. I think what we need to see is one group start to have success with it. And as soon as you see one group start to have success and you can see how they do things, then I think you will start seeing that spread to other groups very naturally. You'll get their other teachers, higher level fighters come down and say, hey, show me how you work the guys through this. I mean, what are you doing that helps you get over whatever humps it is? And I think you'll start to see it spread out fairly quickly once you find a path that actually works. The problem is you have to find that initial path. You have to find those first steps. To go back to the shield thing again, look how quickly that has spread across our kingdom just by seeing a few successful people be successful with it. So if we can get a successful program here, Twin Moons, wherever, I don't really care where it comes from. I'm not proud about this at all. I will happily take what works and apply it. That's the way the fighting we do, the sport we do gets better quicker. That's what makes it work. The internet days these days alone have helped fighting tremendously. They allow people to share videos, see what's going on. We have Branos from the Middle Kingdom on our collegium the other weekend. That alone is stunning. You would not have seen that 10 years ago. It just wouldn't have happened. You would have had to fly him out. That would have been expensive and hard. And these days, it's not a big deal. So I think you're going to see a lot more sharing. And as soon as people see these little breakthroughs happen, they're going to spread fairly quickly. The hard part is figuring out what those breakthroughs are, making them initially. How do we get people engaged in training that's not boring, that is effective, that they can immediately see is effective? How do we do that? I don't know. I don't have an answer yet. I'm still playing around with a lot of things, and I'm going to try and play around with a lot more. And the ones that work, we'll keep. And the ones that don't, we'll throw them out the window with no hesitation. That's the way it goes. You just have to be willing to try things and have a few people who are willing to try them with you, and be willing not to get stuck on ones that don't work. Throw them out when they don't provide success. If you see a value in them later, come back to them later.
That is. Yet I've watched a lot of nights you guys talk about this and start making changes at the local level. And so I have no doubt, so you'll be successful in this, just by watching what you guys have been doing. So,
it's an exciting time because we're watching the group kind of come, the Shiv circle kind of come together and saying, how do we improve what we're doing?
Yes.
How do we improve the entry level? And it's an exciting time to watch, because I'm on the outside of the circle. It's an exciting time to watch you all come together as a circle and kind of take the same direction of path as a group. It's good to see.
There have been some really good discussions. I mean, giving nothing away about Circle or anything remotely, but those kind of discussions are important to us as a group of knights. How do we help bring more people up? Our goal is not to exclude people. It's to include as many people as we can bring up.
Yes.
Really, that's what it comes down to. And that I say that for both circles I sit in. As a Laurel, my goal is not to exclude you from my circle. My goal is to make sure I help you in every way I can so that you can get into my circle. I want more people. I want to have a bigger group of very competent artisans out there. Just like knights, I want a bigger group of highly competent fighters out on the field at any one time. I want them to be successful. Part of that want is selfish, to be perfectly blunt, because if you're better, you will make me better. And I want to be better. I want to get better. I don't want to stop that progression until I literally physically have to. And that is a mental thing that some people struggle with. You have to constantly want to get better. And sometimes it can be really hard. But you have to empty out your cup of everything you think you know on occasion and go in and start learning again. Because it's really easy to get trapped into what you know. I ran into this after my first crown. For probably 2 to 3 years after my first crown, I didn't make any progress. I backslid. I did not get better. I had won a crown, and I was good, and I knew I was good, but I couldn't get there again, and I didn't understand why. And it took a lot of figuring out on my part that it was because I already knew I was good, and so I wasn't learning anymore.
Yeah.
And so I had to dump everything out and kind of start over from scratch is the wrong word, because I mean, you have enough skills. You're not really starting from scratch, but I had to start learning all over again. I had to accept that I have a lot of stuff still to learn, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it keeps things exciting. It keeps things going. And all those little things that I learned make me better. Not just a better fighter, but if you apply that to a lot of things, it just makes you a better person all the way around. And being willing to open up and let people critique you, which is a super hard thing to do. Also find the right people to critique you, which is also hard.
Very hard to do, yes.
But find people you can trust to critique you and take their commentary to heart. You see shows like Forged and Fire, super popular show, really popular with the SCA crowd, go figure. But you see those guys and the judges critique them after they turn their blades in initially, and probably half of them don't bother to listen when they go to clean their stuff up and put handles on the next day. Those people are being dumb.
Yes.
But that's a lot of people. I was one of them for a while. I was being dumb. You have to learn that. You have to accept that when you go forth and somebody tells you, hey, and you're struggling, and you've been struggling for a while, when somebody tells you, hey, you're doing this, don't blow them off. Listen to what they say. Even if they are wrong, the very fact that you have forced yourself to listen to them and examine what they're saying and then try it to make sure that either you are right or they are right, that will allow you to learn from them. If somebody tells you, hey, you're holding your shield a little too far out, don't blow it off. Open up, think about it, figure it out. Are you really holding it too far out? Pull it back in, see how that goes. It's all these little things and being willing to learn them. And this doesn't just apply to fighting. As we just said with Forged and Fire, it applies to your craft as a whole.
Yes.
Being willing to learn and be a student for life is hard for a lot of folks, but it is also super important. And don't hesitate to learn from somebody that is younger than you if they have things that are important to say. Just because you're older doesn't always make you wiser or better at something. There are guys out there who are younger than I am that are absolutely better than me at certain things, and I would be a fool not to pay attention to them. That's the way it is. It's not a slight on you. You're trying to be a student and you're trying to learn. It doesn't matter who it's from. Older, younger, man, woman, doesn't matter.
I have the absolute best example for that one, and even though it's in the modern world, you know James Douglas. You met James Douglas. Who hasn't met JD? His hobby is now doing bonsai trees and horticulture with trees, and he's actually very good at it. Yeah, it's phenomenal to see some of the pictures he has sent me. And I was talking to him about some trees I ordered for our backyard landscaping project, and I'm having a problem with one of them. Mm-hmm. And, this is my 27-year-old son. And
doubly hard to learn from. Your son and younger.
Yes. But I have to acknowledge, that he's really good and he knows what he's talking about. So here he calls me 2 days later after I tell him the trouble I'm having with one of my trees. And he starts texting me, Mom, you need to do this, go buy this. Here's the link to this, and one of them's coming back because I followed exactly what he told me. Like, yes, it was doubly hard. This is my son, and he's 27 years old. And I'm like, that brain glitch of, oh, but I had to stop and say, he knows way more than I know. I need to listen. Even if he's not 100% accurate, he still knows more than I do about trees.
Hey, that's got to be his thing. And
Yeah,
if it's somebody's thing, take the time to listen to them because they're far more invested in it likely than you are.
exactly. But it's definitely a struggle, but you have to open your mind to the possibilities.
It's a phrase that I've heard and used throughout, coming from active duty military, is you've got to put your ego in your back pocket.
Yep.
You got to get your ego back, get your ego in check. And it's not necessarily becoming humble, but to accept that other people's passion have led them in different directions, and has value.
Yes. They
Second,
have learned things that you may not have.
yes.
Yeah. Well, Your Grace, thank you so much.
Thank you both. This has been a lot of fun.
It has been.
We really appreciate you being willing to jump in here and kind of guinea pig this with us and figure it out. And, for me personally, you have always been one of my heroes. And, but I recognize that you are His Grace, Duke Ivan. And that can be, for a new person, that may be a little awe-inspiring.
Intimidating, yeah.
Thank you so much for setting it all to the side and letting us see who Ivan is tonight.
If I can have one last word before you guys go.
Absolutely.
So you touched on the fact that I am His Grace Ivan. I didn't know I was going to get there. That's something I wanted to point out flat out. I had no idea I would actually get here. I struggled and I worked and I started at the very beginning like everybody else. I was a college student. I was poor. My first garb was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Almost everybody starts there. If you don't, you're a leg up. Great, carry on. But literally, probably 85-90% of us start the SCA that way. We start out young, we start out poor, we start out with not enough stuff, with not enough knowledge, and it's okay. Talk to the people who are doing things you want to do. Almost every one of them started out just like you at some point. It's fine. Come up and talk to me. I try not to be that scary. That's not my goal. Again, all of us start at the beginning. It's okay. If you like things that people are doing, don't hesitate to come up and ask them about what they're doing. Unless they're really busy, this is their passion too. Most of them will be more than happy to talk your ear off. Getting away may be the hard point after you start talking.
Absolutely.
It really is. Sometimes it can be. Well, for everyone that's tuned in tonight, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your support, your help. I know that a lot of you were expecting this to be on Facebook Live. I am not that technologically savvy to figure out how to do YouTube and Facebook Live at the same time. So tonight it was YouTube. Hopefully I'll have this figured out before our next Ysgithr Allthing. Anyone that thinks they would like to participate in a Ysgithr Allthing, please get in touch with us. This is not a peer only endeavor. We are all a part of this barony, and we would like to hear from everybody. This is a good opportunity to introduce yourself and get to know others in the barony. I think. Thank you. That's all I got.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Your Grace. You have a wonderful night.
You too. Good night, you.
Good night.
Good night.